Hi guys, welcome back. A little bit of a diagnostic piece today, just an investigation here. Discovered upon last lifting the cover off that there's a bit of a puddle of diesel down here. Let me just light that up with a torch. You can see the pull down there. It's coming from the number 4 injector. Bone dry on 3, bone dry on 2. Tiny little hint of oily slurry down there, but broadly speaking bone dry on 1. And 5 has just got the bleed through from behind that point there. It runs underneath. So the suspect here is number 4. I'm just looking at it before we do anything more invasive. There's a few things I would observe straight away. Firstly, that is at a very slightly different angle from all of the others. So at some point this injector has been taken apart, presumably to use some kind of puller tool, and potentially not been put back together properly. It is possible that there's some seepage coming from the bottom of that nut there. Now, I can show you in a second how it all holds together because I've got a spare injector here. I do tend to keep one in stock, as with a lot of the components that tend to fail. Okay, so the first thing to do, I'm going to loosen that off, correctly position it, tighten that up properly using the correct tool for the job, rather than what I suspect has happened is an adjustable spanner has been used at some point. Again, looking at the sides of this, I can see some scuff marks on the side of that nut, which are not consistent with using the correct tool. A few scores, so we'll see what we see. Next suspect is that fluffy end there on the return line. I think that pipe could be cracked, in which case it could be seeping down, although I'm not seeing any evidence around the side of the plastic housing there for the connection that would suggest that that's the case, but I don't like fluffy ends on these anyway, so I'll replace those lengths. It only takes about 5 minutes, so super easy to do. We'll do that in a moment. Failing that, it could be the O-ring in the middle, the copper gasket at the base rather, in between the injector and the compression chamber itself, could be blowing. Or of course, most obviously, it could be that this connection union here is not either seating properly or nipped up nice and tight. Now, again, I'm not seeing any evidence underneath to suggest a drip. It does seem to be quite dry down there, so it's a little bit of an enigma, but we'll see what we find. First job is to dry that off, get rid of all of the diesel there, so that we can take it for a run and establish whether or not the light touch fixes have done the trick. Now, before I go any further into this, just to show you what we're dealing with here, this is an injector. As I say, I usually keep a spare one of these around, just in case. This was salvaged from eBay, and you can see here evidence of this having been removed without using the correct tools. The injector itself is clean enough, as is the same with all of the bits I salvaged from eBay. Basically I brought it in, reconditioned it, ready to fit in an emergency. But yeah, witness marks here, it's quite fresh, it's not been corroded here or whatever, so yeah, this has been done since it was last in a vehicle. You can see evidence of this having been manhandled to a degree. Now, this union here on the fuel return is, I think, what is going to be the problem. I suspect that there is a crack in the fluffy end. It's terrible shape anyway, like. But all this is a little hose fitting. You just cut a new section of pipe. It's very, very cheap. New section of pipe, stick it on and reconnect those. The other thing I can do is I mentioned that I suspect that this nut might be loose on the one that's fitted. Now the correct tool, and these come with diesel puller kits, diesel injector puller kits, sits over the top of the socket connector, the electrical connector, and allows you basically to spin that nut off or on appropriately, so you can torque it up. What usually happens when you pick these things up, if someone hasn't done that, is that these tools won't fit on because this is not aligned. It sits slightly out so that you can't actually get the hexagon to fit over the top. If that was slightly, maybe 15 degrees out, I wouldn't be able to actually fit the socket on. So this one is good to go. I think what I need to do is loosen it off, realign the top, and then nip it up properly so that it aligns with the others. So just looking at the evidence, I think that's what we might be dealing with. Suspect number one, I think, though, has to be this big ball of fluff here. So let's deal with that now. Okay, so that's dried out in there. Let's put a magnetic tray on top of the barber just to collect the pins and so on. Okay, let's plant my magnetic tray there just to catch the bits. Let's deal with this fluffy pipe. These things are always easier to deal with if you keep them on the injector. Remember that it's just a little hose connector, so we'll just pull that off there. Just with a pair of pliers. They're not cracked, but quite loose and very, very soft. If you can see that there, it's pretty awful condition, so it certainly can't hurt to replace this. So we'll just take both ends of that off. Let's get myself in a better position. Perfect. With a length of replacement pipe. This is very, very cheap stuff. Usually sold by the foot. We'll just cut the appropriate length piece. And push that on. Simple as that. You'll not get much easier jobs than that. Now that in itself might help. It's also, whilst we're at it, looking for easy options before I even start disconnecting this pipe and trying to tighten that up, or that nut rather. Let's just see if this nips up any. 15mm socket. Just trying to find the right position. I'm going to use the bar here just to get a bit of purchase. Yeah, it has nipped up just a very tiny bit. That might be just enough. Right, I'm going to take it for a quick run here, see if that makes any difference, and take a view on whether or not I need to actually disconnect this and tighten things up properly, or whether we can call that the source of the problem. Okay, so we're back under the hood. Right. Does indeed seem to have stemmed the flow. There are a couple of other pieces of this that are a little bit fluffy, particularly this one and this one. So I'll replace those now and give it a blast with some brake cleaner. Once this all cools down a bit, make sure that it's all nice and clean, and keep an eye on it over the next few days. If it does start to fill up again, albeit gradually, I'll pop this injector out and we'll have a look and see how that's seating at the bottom. Might need to polish the port, might need to regrind the port, reseat the port rather. For sure it needs a new copper washer, so we'll see if we need to do that in a couple of days time. For now, I'll just change these over. I'll just fast wind on through this as we go, but a very, very straightforward job. I need a pair of scissors, some hose, and I would suggest some pliers with a bend on the end. Just makes it a little bit easier to pull these off, although you can see they don't require a lot of force, and these are very, very squishy, so I think they're long past the point at which they need to be replaced. I mean, probably the easiest job you'll find to do under your bonnet on one of these engines. Oh, this one's a bit stiff. There we go. Might need another pair of pliers for this one. Oh no, that's come off. Again, very, very old and tired. Such an easy thing to replace. Crazy not to. So this pipe, by the way, is the fuel return line. So the high pressure lines deliver fuel from the common rail. That's the name of the engine. There's a high pressure rail that feeds all 5 injectors. And every time the injector opens and closes, squirts a little bit of fuel in from the high pressure. There's a bit left over that trickles back through these fuel return lines. It's not high pressure. They do wear out. Well, of course the rubber in them is constantly exposed to heat, so it's not really too much of a surprise that they get squishy and start to leak. But what you can find with these is they actually crack and perish over time. Another one there, very fluffy at the end. Just use the old one here as a template. And to the last one. So, new return lines fitted on all injectors. Keep an eye on that the next few days and see if it's worth pulling number 4 out to have a look and see what state the port's in at the bottom. There's usually telltale signs to show if it's been blowing, but with this particular engine, and many others like it, there is a seal at the top of the injector that prevents exhaust gas from blowing past the injectors. What it tends to do instead is over pressurize the crankcase by blowing through. There's in the rocker box cover at the top here, there's a gasket around the outside, but there's also one that goes just around the injectors. If it blows through that, that'll over pressurize the crankcase, and that's responsible for quite a lot of oil leaks on this particular engine, particularly the crank head over here. You can see just in there, that component behind there has a liquid gasket on it. That leaks. It looks like it's coming from the rocker box gasket here, but it's not. It's actually coming from that. Now, to fix that one, you have to take the timing belt off. It's a bit of an involved process, but maybe one for another time. That was done not so very long ago, hence the nice shiny component. That's us for now. Nice tidy return line. Let's see how that goes for the next few days. If that's been useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Plenty more content like this coming up, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.